Forbes India, CNBC-TV18 present India Inc. on the Move. Smart Manufacturing, powered by Rockwell Automation.
Welcome back to Forbes and CNBC-TV18 present India Inc. on the Move. Smart Manufacturing, powered by Rockwell Automation. A gentle reminder to follow the COVID protocols by wearing your mask and maintaining social distancing, please. Moving ahead, oh yes, as we move towards smart manufacturing and smart factories, the use of IoT-powered devices and connected plants is giving rapidly, and of course with it too, the quantum of data generated from these devices, the need for it is increasing like how. But the important question to address is, what is your business doing with such petabytes of data generated every day? Is the data being linked up and treated to enable insightful business decisions? And that is the topic of our first panel today, leveraging data for connected enterprise, where our panelists, they will talk about how big data can change the status quo for architecting the enterprise. Taking this session forward will be our senior journalist and technology expert, Mr. Gautam Srinivasan. Please, let's just put our hands together to welcome him on stage. Welcome, sir. And now I would like to humbly invite our speakers on the stage now. Mr. Rajesh Uppal, Member Executive Board, HR, IT and Safety, Maruti Suzuki's India Limited. Please, let's just put our hands together for him. Along with him, I would like to invite Mr. Sudhanshu Nethani, Executive Director, CDT BHEL. Please, a round of applause for him too. And Mr. Dilip Sahani, Managing Director, India Rockwell Automation. And finally, Mr. Nabil El-Buzrati, South Asia Region Chief Engineer at Nestle. Please, let's just put our hands together for our panelists. And of course, not to miss, we will have a quick Q&A with the panel at the end. So do keep your questions ready. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maya. Indeed, we'll have to figure out how our conversation is going to pan out to make sure that the audience Q&A round is more robust. But, well, India Inc. is truly on the move. It's great to see all of you. Indeed, the confluence of all these delegates. It's giving rise to a connected experience, just as a confluence of technologies give rise to a connected enterprise. And we are here to talk about leveraging data for a connected enterprise. And if you take a sort of a bottoms-up view, you have smart components which give rise to smart processes, which in turn gives rise to smart functions, and which ultimately leads to the connected enterprise. And data, in a sense, is a lifeblood, right, for any enterprise. But the question is, how do you channel it effectively to make sure that it delivers business value? And that's what I am here with this fantastic panel of leaders to understand. And I'm sure the conversations are going to take some unique twists and turns. So I'll start with you, Rajesh. It's been an interesting time. The last time we spoke, things were kind of different for the auto sector, where, you know, demand was down and the sector was grappling with figuring out how exactly to solve that. Now forward to 2022, record-setting sales, record-setting demand. So in these past 2-3 years, tell us how this adversity pushed you forward. You know, what were the challenges that you overcame to really be a digital-first enterprise?
Thanks, Gautam. Nice to connect again after a long time. See, one big change which has happened to our industry has been, the industry always known to be a very rigid and firm plan for a quarter and firm plan for the months together and all, and then produce according to that, to a much more agile and flexible industry to work on. And based on the current availability of components or market demand, how agile you can be to really support our customers. So that has been a fundamental shift in last couple of years on the whole industry dynamics. Now, in that regard, I think digitalization has become a major platform to able to get that agility for the whole organization to be there. Now, how do you connect to your customer and get your demand inside your production shop floor? Create that transparency, create that agility. It has been a fundamental change which has happened in the industry to that. Now, in order to do that, I think you need a very strong digital program in the company to drive that change in the company, which right from the board level to the everybody on the ground work together to really build that up and all. And if you ask me challenges to do that, or rather I'll say opportunity to do that, I've been working on 3 major pillars to work on, frankly. First pillar is really to create that kind of, what should I say, the demand for this, and right from board level that we have right kind of demand coming in to do that, and also which really span across creating right kind of capability at the senior level to really sponsor those kind of projects and get right kind of expectation to do that. And also at the level of, adoption to really build that kind of culture of or a mindset of doing this kind of thing is the one challenge or one area to work on. Second important area for us is capability to really do it. So we worked on creating that capability within our organization by creating various COEs. We created those kind of COE for IoT, COE for analytics, COE for business innovation, and so on and so forth, is the second area of the capability. Also, large enterprises are always been tuned to work with the large enterprises, big contracts, and work on. Now, how do you create the organization to really work with startup companies and create those kind of visibility or those kind of agility to work with them, handhold them, and co-create the solutions to run it? So that's the second big area of working, and which I think is a challenge which we did now overcome by changing the culture. And third important area is really to quantify those value and run those digital programs in the company, understanding the process of doing that in the company to look at that, and not create that kind of ecosystem within the company, and also ecosystem of partners working with you, so that you can deliver and work to do that and create that value which you just talked about in the company for any digital program to run. I think these are 3 opening comments from my side.
Absolutely. And it's always been your mantra to look at it from creating an architecture for growth and then make it lead on to a framework for agility. And that's a key word right there, agility.
Absolutely.
But with agility, there's also something to factor, which is volatility. Because internally, you might, as a leader, feel that things are in control, but what happens when there are external factors? And we have been pretty much embracing volatility for a long time, and geopolitics plays its part, and local domestic conditions also play its part. So how does that impact digital transformation journeys? Dilip, I'd like your view on this.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Gautam. First of all, pleasure to be here as part of this August panel. Couple of thoughts. So, what the pandemic taught us is whatever we knew about volatility, uncertainty, that itself got a massive reset. But while the pandemic is not over, there have been all of these new events, which are equally, had it not been for the pandemic, they would have really, really defined what a volatile, uncertain operating environment would be like. So, be it the war that's playing out in Europe, the tensions around in the South China Sea, et cetera, which have a direct impact on the predictability of the supply chain, resilience, et cetera. So if anything, I think it makes the game of manufacturing even more uncertain. So you've got to really grapple with that, right? So it's not easy being a manufacturer, right? On the one hand, and walking up over here, we were talking about how the business models are evolving, because in our private capacities as consumers, we're getting used to now, being delivered whatever you want in 19 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever is the right number. So on the one hand, business models are changing by the month, literally. On the other hand, as consumers, we are becoming much more demanding in terms of all the auto variants, and what all gadgetry we like to see inside of that and so forth. So the consumer choices, we want everything to be personalized and all of that. We want things delivered in a very different manner, right? At the same time, upstreams and supply chain, there is a massively different level of uncertainty that exists. And these are non-trivial challenges for manufacturers, right? If you bring in the other elements of availability of talent, it got massively exposed during the COVID times because you could not put so many people inside of factories, right? But now everyone, 90% of the people that I talk to have one common problem, which is availability of talent, no matter which walk of life they come from as far as manufacturing is concerned. So, it's a pretty heady mix, right? Now, if you have to overcome all of these uncertainties and still come out on tops and still make manufacturing lead the Indian economy and become a $1 trillion sector, right? You cannot do it just by practicing manufacturing the way it was done. We heard excellent examples which you just cited. You've got to really be utilizing the contemporary approaches that the digital technologies are affording to us, right? What are the uses of powerful new paradigms like data analytics, digital twins, digital thread? Can they give you a way to overcome some or all of these challenges? I'm very hopeful. I'm beginning to see that not only that is the case, but it is getting increasingly embraced by the industry as a way to overcome all of this headwind.
But there's still a long way to go, because as NASSCOM came out with its report that if the target of that 1 trillion has to be met by FY26, there is still a lot of room for improvement for a lot of the manufacturing enterprises to sort of embrace the cloud, embrace technologies, and kind of really use it to kind of unlock possibilities of growth.
Undoubtedly. I think, because we have to continue to transform. Like I said, you cannot continue practicing manufacturing the way it was done earlier. You got to really approach it in a whole different way. In a good part of India, good or bad, I won't argue, but an aspect of Indian manufacturing is, some high number, 90+% of Indian manufacturers are MSME, right? Now, that could be a handicap for India as an economy, or it could now be an advantage, because scale is no longer a handicap. If you use cloud-based technologies, it's easier for you may argue, to scale, right? Because previously you had to put these big honking IT systems, if you had to adopt a new way of designing your platforms and so forth. Now you can straight away consume them off the cloud.
Absolutely.
So paradigms are
it's
changing.
that context of using technology to drive business outcomes, which is making those proof of concepts more robust, which in turn is driving more players to embrace technology. But one of the points that you mentioned, Dilip, I'll get Nabil to comment on that, is that consumers are getting more demanding. But especially if you look at millennials, they are even more demanding from another perspective. They want more transparency. They want to understand where the product comes from. They want to understand how it's sustainable. So from that perspective, how can you be digitally first for these kinds of customers?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Gurugram. Actually, I would like just to broaden your question a little bit. Yes, maybe it's led by the millennials, the trend. But what we notice is that the large part of our consumers are definitely interested. They want to have their own ways. They are more interested in sustainability and health, and they want to have customized production and customized product for them. So for that, which is a very healthy environment, because that's what we strive for, and this is part of our values. Now, coming back to digitalization, Nestlé has embarked in a digitalization journey, and it's a journey of transformation. So that, coming to your point, we have to keep on transforming as we progress. We will be navigating through uncharted waters, and we need to be agile to be able to adjust ourselves quickly, fast, and in the most efficient ways. In Nestlé, we have considered these digital transformation journey. It has to be business-led and consumer-centric. And business-led because it has to bring value to the business. Otherwise, there's no need to embark, there's no need to engage. And consumer-centric because at the end of the day, whatever we do is centered around our consumers, to your point, with sustainability, health, and transparency. Now, to share with you some examples of what we have done and how digitalization has helped us in this journey and continue to help us, I take an example of globally, we talk globally, Nestle, we talk to over 200,000 consumers a week. And we manage almost like over 500,000 feedback a month. And we have millions and millions of consumer interactions that are coming. These are a huge quantity of data that if used properly, use the right tool, use the right data analytics, this can help us from the consumer insight point of view. It's a wealth that you cannot imagine. Not only to understand the expectations of the consumers, but also maybe sometimes to exceed the expectations, detect new trend, and also think of new innovations and renovations and see where the consumer wants to go, what are the interests of the consumer. So this, just one part of the value chain, which is the consumer insight, an example where data analytics and artificial intelligence is helping us shape our consumer insight and be much faster to meet their expectations and exceed the expectations and detect the trend. I'll give you another example where another stream of the whole value chain, which is procurement. In India, for example, we have over 100,000 farmers that we deal with on a daily basis to collect fresh milk. Now, just imagine how to manage over 100,000 farmers on a daily basis. So we have digitized this system to monitor the quantity, the quality, the fat content, the solid non-fat content, and the payments. So each and every one of these over 100,000 farmer gets on a daily basis an e-slip, knowing exactly what was the content of his milk or her milk, and knowing exactly, and the payment is done also digitally. So this is a fantastic tool as well, where digital can, I move again to, for example, the transportation and logistics, which is quite a big component of our value chain. We have launched an initiative, a transport hub, where we have a digital platform where we can optimize and monitor our resources from the transportation in order to have always the most efficient routes and feed and supply and both inbound and outbound our goods in order to achieve the best and the efficient circuit. And I can move on as well to the connected factory. So we have quite a lot of examples where digital and digital transformation is really helping us quite a great deal.
Well, those are some fantastic examples and indeed a proof of how leveraging data for the connected enterprise truly opens up possibilities. And I think as an enterprise makes you more proactive than reactive, so that you can sort problems even before they arise. And as they say, any advanced science is indistinguishable from magic. So your customers, if they feel that the enterprise knows them better than they know themselves and gives them the right kind of products and solutions, makes the experience much, much more robust. But another aspect of this conversation is, while all these fantastic possibilities come about, it's also about securing growth, securing those possibilities. So in terms of cyber security and other initiatives, especially as cloud adoption grows, Sudhanshu, what are some of the best practices that you'd like to share?
Thank you. For us, cybersecurity is something that...
If you can hold the mic closer to you, so
sure,
that the folks
sorry.
at the back can listen.
So cybersecurity is something which for us goes beyond the hardware and the software part. We are an organization which has 16 manufacturing units geographically distributed all across the country and more than 50 project sites, 3 engineering centers. And there's a tremendous amount of data that gets generated that needs to be secure. So there are layers which you put in right from the firewalls. I mean, that's something which is as basic as that, and then up to the endpoints. You also have today a very good network of advisories which are available through agencies like Certain and NCIPC, which help us in being on our toes. But What I have learned, at least in the last 2 years, is that the strongest link in this chain is the weakest link. That's the people who are actually using the whole system. So for us, we have to be right all the time. The bad guy outside has to be right just once. And the chinks are so huge that it's impossible to manage, especially if you've been using IT resources for as long as we've been doing. There will be some machines which will be probably 15, 20 years old. There'll be machines which will be having OSs which in an isolated world may not mean much, but once they get connected to the net, they would be having some issue or the other which can be exploited tomorrow. And this is something that practically every user knows, everybody in the manufacturing industry knows. So for us, it's basically the user who has to be all the time made to be a part of this. It's not something that the IT guy has to ensure that you're going to be secure. It's the man who's actually using the device, who's using the application. He or she has to be on the toes all the time to ensure that all the practices that are being deployed are safe. You're not doing something new. You're not doing something different. And if you're trying to bring in something, as an example that I shared with you, if you're bringing in something as an interface which had an OS maybe which was devised 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and it's still functional, before you put it on board, you need to do a lot of testing to make sure that you do not have any weaknesses or any chinks in the armor which can be exploited.
But
So,
do you feel that you're always playing catch up? Because at the end of the day, you know, when we look at it from a defenders versus attackers, the universe, that universe always keeps evolving. So anything that, you know, any words of advice you would give to the audience here on how to not get bogged down?
No, I would place a lot of confidence in the quality of the service that is provided by all the security OEMs that we have in place, whether it's hardware or software. So that's something that's always there. Having said that, once you have an incident, once something happens, it's something that needs to be managed, something that needs to be taken care of in such a way that the damage is contained, and then the learnings out of it. And that way, I think the kind of a networking that is happening, especially amongst the security specialists, the feedback that we get from them, the inputs that we get from them, essentially it's a connect that needs to be established, as I said, with the users, people who are actually using the technology, to ensure that they understand what they're trying to do. If you're doing something routine that you've been doing day in and day out and there's no change, you are per se safe. It's only when you're making a change for the first time. I think today in the morning there was some this thing about Office 365 issue or something like that, which created some problems with some of the VC applications that were running. So these are things that can happen any point in time, especially when you're doing something new or when you're using something old. If there's something that you're using which is which is constant, so to speak, though it's an oxymoron in this context, but still, if something is proven, you're not making any change, I think you're safe.
Always keep your eyes on the prize. Let's take the conversation more towards the process side of things, because as we discussed earlier, that you can get a lot of insights from data. So the question is, how do you truly leverage those insights? So Rajesh, from your vast experience, take us through how you make sure that the data is generating the right kind of insights, and if you could highlight some of those insights in a field which is very competitive for you from the perspective of automation, AI. How do these enable you to make the right decisions?
Okay, just take the conversion forward on this aspect is very clearly, what's the difference between traditional IT and digital now? Now, the IT was always toward automation, how to make things work better and all that. Now here the focus is what value you are creating. So maybe the whole conversation, while we have made capability to deliver, you have an agile methodology, all those things in the back end to deliver that. But the whole conversation starts from what value you want to deliver. What's your current baseline? What is the, maybe OE right now and all those things around. The objective is to get that value out of that implementation. You have all the framework, your data lakes, your whole capability analytics in place to do that. How do you create that value out of that is the conversation now with the business user and the digital team. And set up a target that, okay, within first MVP will reach at this level, maybe after second MVP will reach at that level, with a very clear business outcome as a focus now, than really saying I'm digitalizing something around and all. So the whole project governance structure, whole the way we deliver the whole projects, every their conversation is what's the current base value. It could be, you know, in our case, could be on customer experience part. It could be on, you know, downtime on the shop floor parts and all, or anything on that and all. What's our current baseline, and how through digitalization, through data analytics, you create that value for the business going forward. Now that's the way now the projects are run. After the hygiene on the back ends and IT is available to do that and all. Now how do you consume data to create that value for the business in a very definite short time frames in each MVP there? And we'll clearly target on adopting that and creating that value for the business. Now that's the big change which is happening now in the way we consume this digitalization and adopt that in the organization.
All right. Taking that forward, Sudhanshu, what advantages do you see owning the tech infrastructure in light of, say, data privacy and data localization guidelines that have come in? Your thoughts on this?
So to my mind, this question goes beyond guidelines, because it's what you put in your resources over a period of time. And that includes that hardware and software, to my mind, are things that you can buy, you can replace, you can change. But more important than that is what you have evolved with your people, with your systems, what has been done. So having your own setup, your own data centers, your own systems, your own connectivity, security, first of all, is something that you're more confident of, definitely. But more than that, the question of operations of complex systems. You have engineering systems, procurement systems, you have execution systems, material tracking systems. For us to deliver a project on ground, for which the activities start at various manufacturing units, and the activities would start probably with the engineering part, then the procurement, then the manufacturing, dispatch, finally the erection, commissioning, testing at site. The system that has been put in place over the past 10 years or so, and which has become pretty mature, there is a lot of interplay of the systems talking to each other, the applications talking to each other, and the data which flows from one point to another. Taking all of this onto cloud is, first of all, going to be a huge transaction. The transaction cost itself is tremendous. The second part is the cost that has already been subsumed in this process, and what it is going to cost, what is the advantage that is brought to us in case you migrate to a cloud. The third part is the people behind all this. That to my mind, that is the most important, because beyond data, beyond the processes which have been digitalized, it's always the man who's actually doing the most critical thing. The last minute decision that needs to be taken, the changes that need to be adapted to. So these kind of things, when they have been kind of institutionalized in your system, in the systems that have been put in place, taking them onto a cloud kind of a situation would take a lot of thinking. So that to my mind, is a very, very big question that each business has to answer, and the answers will be very, very different for each business that we talk about.
All right, we're almost heading to the last leg of our conversation before we go to the audience. So a quick view from you, Rajesh, on calculating the cost of digital transformation. Sudhanshu mentioned cost, but how do you calculate effectively the cost of digital transformation? Any words of advice to our leaders here?
I think, as I said, when you just start with conversation on, what is your value driven, the mindset which I think in digital has to be a mindset of an entrepreneur. That how much you are investing, what the return you are getting, and then what's the value you are creating out of that. Now, if you start driving the project in this mindset, the very clearly the whole approach and the methodology we use is of agile, where we start with doing value validation by a small POC or MVP one, and then scale it out the whole company to do that and all. So the approach of getting right cost involved in that. So when you do POC, you get that how much does it cost, how much value you're creating, and take it forward horizontally across the whole company. Take example of our startup program Mail, which we are running with a startup company. I mean, almost now 15 startups are our vendor right now in that program. And in each one of them, I've seen ROI coming in within a year of investment. Now, that's the kind of, adoption and the value creation does when you do project in the mode with very clearly value on the mindset of running digital in an entrepreneur mode.
All right. A quick view from you, Nabil, on the importance of people, bringing people into this whole talk about technology and how making them believe that this is a value add for them is actually great for the enterprise.
Absolutely. In the digital journey, if I have to pick only two areas where we need to invest heavily, it will be in infrastructure and people. And when I say people, is their competencies. We definitely need to take them on board. We definitely need to ensure that we show them the benefit of and diffuse the fear, because there will be always fears. And we need to be as well, how can I put it? We need to be cognizant that from generation to generation, the people will embrace digitalization in a different way. So we have to take that one into consideration to build up the competency, because without competency, and the digital should be only an enabler, a tool. At the end of the day, what makes our companies great are our people. These are the most valuable assets. So investing in their competencies, building them, being patient because of the generational differences between the two, and leveraging also on making these generationals work for us. Letting different generations help others, that for me will be the secret sauce.
You could have a career in politics. But before we wrap up, Dilip, a quick view from you on how, from a technology perspective, this whole partner ecosystem is panning out. Because at the end of the day, it's also that technology providers are understanding enterprise customers much better and providing those kind of solutions. So how is the partner ecosystem panning out?
That's a very important aspect, and one not to be ignored at all. I'll say to you that a couple of important considerations. First of all, we spoke about volatility and all of those aspects. One thing which is very apparent is the time constants are compressing. That's what is, and it is going to continue to be the case. You do not have the luxury of time to, we spoke about people, where is the time and the opportunity to in-house build up all those capabilities that you could afford to do a decade ago, right? You can't do that anymore, right? Yet at the same time, technology is evolving at an ever so more increasing pace. We spoke about startups and all those kinds of things. So if you have to really harness the power of these technologies, and you don't have the opportunity to build up that capability in-house, that's where you really need a trustworthy partner. Partner who not only knows how that technology works, but partner who understands how to be outcome-oriented, who is willing to meet you where you are and walk with you every step of the way so that you can actually derive that value, the business outcome that you set out to achieve, right? So it is actually a very important decision, I would say, amongst the top couple of important deciding factors as you set out on your digital transformation journey is who do you choose to be your partners, right? And what are your criteria? Yeah.
Well, it's the journey which is interesting and not just the destination. It's also about marching on together, as you say. Correct. There's strength in numbers, and with the right kind of partners, the enterprise can truly unlock the benefits of Industrial Revolution 4.0. On that note, let's take in a few questions from the audience. Do raise your hands if you have a question. Introduce yourself, a quick question to a panelist, and then ask the question. The gentleman at the back, all right, I believe there's one gentleman with the microphone already. Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi, I'm Ketan Kambada from
A
Ahmedabad.
bit louder so that we can hear you clearly.
I'm Ketan Kambada from Ahmedabad. I had a question on how technology and the data is shaping up the decision-making process at the shop floor levels.
All right.
It's open to the panel.
Rajesh, you want to take this? How technology affects the shop floor?
The way, the way it works today is, first and foremost is you need to create a right framework of getting data in place to do that. So organization like us first has to have the data coming from shop floor on a real-time basis on a central platform, so that you get all the data at one place to do that. That's the first part of the whole story. Second part is that you have all analytical skills and tools available to consume the data and take right decisions on that. Now, while you do that, again, the whole approach would always be, where are your current numbers and how do you want to improve it? But you have to understand data and understand the algorithms and build that algorithm to take that decision automatically when this happens. And that's where the whole edge computing come into place, that you learn from the data and make that logic build at the edge so that decisions are taken real time when that event happens. And then you prevent that event to happen for improvement exercise to do that and all. So the whole technology framework in place to manage your connected enterprise at shop floor. And you have all the learning which is on ongoing basis, and that learning are consumed at the time when that event happens, and you improve your working through that. It's an iterative process, but it is really, I see as a process which create value for the organization. I mean, we got created huge value out of that, frankly.
All right. The gentleman at the back, yes, sir, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. My name is Manish Verma. I'm from Delhi, and we are into manufacturing and also working with the OEMs, and we take a lot of material from them. So we have the ecosystem of the manufacturers. My question is that as a service provider, giving these kind of services that we are talking about, in the next 3 to 5 years, where do you think the opportunities exist? And second is that how do we build upon the skills of the people who will be implementing these services?
All right. Dilip, you want to take this up? I mean, how do you see the ecosystem evolving, and especially the people aspect that we have discussed?
Correct. So people, and I alluded to that, earlier in my comments, talent is going to be one of the most limiting factors. I agree with the comments that Nabil was making a few minutes ago as well, which is one of the most important considerations is how do you build the competencies within the organization. Now, if you really look at it, you need to be outcome oriented, right? It's a given that the pace at which you need to move, you cannot build all those capabilities in-house. So you definitely require specialization, which an ecosystem around large manufacturers is willing to provide. The good part is that in India, we've seen a high degree of maturity now emerge in terms of machinery builders, in terms of services organizations, systems integrators, right? What needs to now still happen is identification of core competencies, right? Many of these organizations are smaller size organizations. They need to recognize what is their sweet spot, what is it that they can do very well, better than most of the other people around that area, and then continue to build those capabilities. It allows you to make it easier for you to bring your people up to speed faster. It allows you to also give them better retention and also continue to differentiate yourself from others. So that's one consideration, amongst many that I can think of right now, which I wanted to say. There was a second part to the question, which was probably around OEMs, did you say?
The opportunities that may exist for the service providers in the next 3 to 5 years, the opportunities that come up for the service providers.
Perfect. I think the opportunities for service providers are going to, in my mind, they're going to explode, simply because the capabilities of a manufacturer themselves to do so many different things in-house in a short period of time, it's just not manageable. So manufacturers are increasingly relying on trustworthy partners who can come out with those services. So I would say that if you're a service provider, Next few years are going to hold out, an excellent opportunity, but it requires you to continuously, invest in those skills in your organization.
All right, a quick 10-seconder from you, Rajiv.
I think one big change I see is the relationship between service provider and the consumer. Going forward, no, instead of traditional, vendors, supplier relationship, I think we are getting into more partnership relationship where we co-create the value and share the value together. I think that's a big change I see in the relationship between the service provider and the consumers.
That's going to be the definer, co-creation of value between the enterprise and, of course, the customer. And we look forward to a very interesting future. We are living in interesting times, and especially as enterprises leverage data to become a more connected enterprise, I'm excited to see what are the possibilities open up. But for now, we conclude this conversation. I'd like to thank all the panelists for sharing their insights on the topic. If they could have a loud round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Forbes India, CNBC-TV18 present India Inc. on the Move. Smart manufacturing, powered by Rockwell Automation.